Personal brand is something that's bounded and talked about heavily about what our clients think of us. But when we want to progress and develop within an organisation, what's important is what our peers think of us, what the leadership and management within the business think of us, and anybody involved within the organisation. And here's what you can get awareness of what people think about you within your organisation if you're striving to be a top biller or equally a leader or manager within the business. Okay, so personal brand. I'm not talking about personal brand as what's the perception on LinkedIn. I'm talking about personal brand as the reflection of what each of you think about each other. Everybody in this room has a unique perspective on the other person. None of it's the same. You will see people slightly differently, both from a visual perspective, but also mainly from what that person is like. One person might think you're really mature, the other person might think you're not. One person might think you're really hardworking, the other person might think you're lazy. It depends on the perception of themselves as to actually what they perceive as you. So what I want to focus on is what 3 words don't you ever want to hear said about you? And I want those to be, if you think about your personal brand, as you never want to hear somebody say that you are X, Y, Z. And that brings a level of emotion and a trigger point. It's a bit like when you're at school and somebody called you something and it was really, whereas now it's like, grow up, that's pathetic. But then it really hurt. I want you to think about what 3 words at the moment that if you got described as, whether it be your parents, whether it be your best friend, whether it be your partner, or whether it be your manager, one of your co-workers, that would really be like, really trigger you and would bring a level of anger, upset, you never want to be described as. So I'm going to write down those 3, okay? And I want them to be a little bit emotionally triggered for that to occur. And then on the flip side, what I want you to think about is what are the 3 words that you want attributed to you? They may not be who you are right now as a personal brand, but those are the 3 words that you want attributed to you. Whereas it doesn't matter whether that person absolutely hates and despises you, they will likely say the X. He's an absolute arsehole, I absolutely hate him. And tell you what, the person will always X. And when you've got those 3 words that you want to be attributed to yourself, I then want you to give that a rating between number 1 and 4. 1 is that is not you currently. 2, you're on your steps. 3, you're nearly there. And 4, most people that speak to you would attribute that to you. And that is part of your personal brand. So everyone in this room has a perception of you right now. And that makes up part of your personal brand. And it doesn't matter whether it changed. So I'll give you a perspective. So Mo's personal brand when he joined the business, he used to have like 2 or 3 lunches. Now he doesn't have that anymore, and he doesn't eat fucking probably half as much as he used to do when he used to join the business. It was ridiculous. He'd have a second lunch and whatever else. But that still in my mind, if I said who eats the most in the office, it would be Mo. Even if someone else came in and be like, bang, who has a second lunch in the office, Mo? Yeah, I haven't seen Mo have a second lunch for, I can't remember when. But that personal brand will stick with you. First impressions make a significant impression, but consistent behaviours is where we build what personal brand is. And we'll go, yeah, that person's always like that. Even if they're no longer like that, and they're actually the opposite of that. But each of you has a perception of each other, and you may like that perception or you may dislike that perception, but you've built it because of the actions that you've taken. Could be misunderstood, but the actions that you've taken. And when something wants to flip and you want to become more senior in the business, whether that be more seniority from a expertise and skill set perspective, if you are the absolute expert in this, or you want to be a leader, manager within the business, that little bit will haunt you. And it might be that actually the 3 words that you never want said about yourself is actually said about you, but you actually want the 3 words that you want to attribute to yourself has been said about you, but you've got to work towards getting the 3 words. You've got to hold yourself accountable. Because I haven't sat in an interview with anybody, I may have had one person who's said that they're lazy, but everyone who sits in the interview tells me how self-motivated they are. You know, everybody's bloody personal write-up on the top of their CV says, I'm a highly effective, driven, motivated, exceptional person with all the skills that you need. I work incredible as a team, but also incredibly on my own. That tends to be the general consensus. But not 80% of people are not that. They're not self-motivated, they're not self-driven, they don't work fantastic in a team, neither can they work on their own. So you may claim to have that, but your actions must drive what your personal brand is. So really thinking about what you want to be perceived as, and then how do you action that, is incredibly important. Okay, and a good way of testing it is by asking someone else and going, what do you perceive as what would you say about me? Well, I'd say this, this, and this. Okay, but what would you say in a work setting? I'd say this, this, and this. And you'll hear it, and then you will then know. And if you said, well, would you describe me as this, this, and this? And there's a brief pause, then they go, yeah, you know, that's probably them bullshitting you. Whereas they wouldn't possibly want you describe you as that. So there's something to work on and think about, is what is your personal brand, not on LinkedIn, not what your clients think about you, etc., or your prospects, or your peers out in the industry. What do the people around the table think about you, and what, more importantly, do you think about yourself? Because you will just rate yourself between 1 and 4, hopefully. If you haven't got 4s on there, you've got something you need to work on. If you have got 4s on there, you need to test that. And is that everyone else's perception of you, or is that your own false perception of yourself?